Hello, you're welcome. You're welcome onto my channel today, and it gives me great joy to observe you are viewing this video. I am Dr. Olayinka Conle. I am a lecturer in the university. I am a sociologist. I'm a researcher. On this channel, I do a number of stuff, but all the stuffs I do, you can easily cluster them into four: sociology, research, relationship, and migration. Meanwhile, are you subscribed onto this channel? If no, what are you waiting for? Kindly go ahead and subscribe to this channel to join my family of subscribers. Tap the subscribe button on your screen right now, or click the subscribe button on your screen right now to subscribe onto this channel. If you have subscribed to the channel previously, thank you very much for staying tuned and tell others. Today, I want to address a very important topic in sociology and within the framework of sociological theories. I've written books, I've published articles on this theory. And this theory or perspectives I want to address today is one of the most important among the commonest theories or perspectives in sociology: consensus perspectives or structural functionalism. The best way to look at this first is that you have to follow this video carefully, because I'm going to be talking about very important elements, nuances of this theory of perspective. Consensus perspective of structural functionalism fall broadly within the scope of macro sociology. There is a video on this channel on micro and macro theories, macro theories and micro theories. So structural functionalism and consensus perspective fall broadly within the confine of macro sociology. These are theories or perspectives that try to explain human behavior or functioning of societies from the angle of the large-scale societal level realities, looking at the functionalities and interconnectedness of social institutions at the macro level, compared to micro sociologists that look at many level, group level, interpersonal level relationships. So this must be noted. And the next thing for me to tell you is the fact that structural functionalism is the hallmark of consensus perspective. So when you talk about consensus perspective, what already comes to mind is structural functionalism, or what we call functional school of thought. So when you talk about consensus theories, consensus perspective is nearly synonymous with structural functionalism. Now, another journey I want to take you to quickly is, what is the difference between theories and perspectives? If you are a student of sociology, you must have been confronted with this question over time. So generally speaking, perspectives talk about a way of looking at the world, a way of looking at things. Is, broadly speaking, how do you look at things? From what angle are you looking at things? So it's more general, it's broad. Whereas theories are propositions, intellectual assumptions. Theories are explanatory frameworks trying to explain in a very professional way social reality. So theories are elements of perspectives. Like perspectives are like mothers or parents of theories. But every theory, every perspective, however, are what we can call the theories that are embedded in this perspective. So when you talk about consensus perspective, you're already talking about social harmony among social institutions. So perspectives are broad, theories are more limited in coverage, but theories are elements of perspective. So when you talk about consensus perspective, you are broadly looking at social functionalism as theoretical hallmark of that theory. So it's even common for people to look at consensus perspective and structural functionalism as synonym, intellectual synonym. So we have to look at it in that way. So you have to get that clarity so that you can understand what we are looking at. So I've told you about the difference between perspective and theories. I've told you about macro theories or macro perspective. And to let you know now, going fully, when you talk about consensus or perspective or structural functionalism now, what you're talking about is value consensus among social institutions. Consensus perspectives or structural functionalism broadly believes that societies are organized across institutions, that institutions form structures of society. In sociology, we believe there are 5 fundamental social institutions, and how these institutions function harmoniously among themselves, maintain social order in society. And that's why we believe in sociology that the best way to understand society or human behavior is to look at the social institutions of that society and see how they function. Because these social institutions regulate human behavior. They are the agents of socialization. Meanwhile, there's a video on socialization on this channel. There's a video on social institutions on this channel. So consensus perspective or structural functionalism believe that there must be agreement among all these social institutions. By the way, what are these 5 traditional social institutions through which societies operate or regulate or maintain social order? Which are the family, education, economy, religion, and politics. But now, because of current reality, we are adding social media into this. We are adding peer group into this. We are adding health institution into it, because all this also regulates human behavior, determine how people behave. So consensus perspective believe there must be agreement, integration, harmony, unity among all the social institutions for human behavior to be appropriately regulated, for societies to function harmoniously. Don't forget, the central problem of sociology is explaining social order. How does society maintain social order? How do we achieve order in society? So what structural functionalism want to explain is that how do we maintain social order in society? How do we explain order or disorder in society? Don't forget, theories are explanatory framework. So structural functionalism wants to explain social order. So harmony, how do we achieve harmony among all these social institutions as a regulatory agent in society? So if there is harmony among social institutions based on value consensus on value, general agreement with modal values in society, there will be consensus. But if there is disharmony among these social institutions because of disagreement on values and norms, you have conflict. By the way, consensus perspective is the opposite of conflict perspective. There's a video on Marxism on this channel. Marxism is a theory within the conflict perspective, whereas structural functionalism is a theory within the confine of consensus perspective. So social stability, system stability based on consensus among these social institutions form the major argument of structural functionalism. Structural functionalism explains social equilibrium. This is very important. It's an important concept in structural functionalism or consensus perspective. Social equilibrium. There must be equilibrium in society for social order to be maintained. Once there is disequilibrium, there may be social conflicts. There may be conflict in that society, even though society also within the confine of consensus perspective has a way of regulating itself to revert to social equilibrium. So this is very important. So, and you can find early philosophical background to this from the work of J.J. Rousseau and Plato, who believe that structures of society will maintain social order. So early philosophical thinking within the confine of consensus theory can be found in the work of Rousseau and Plato. But within the confine of sociology, basically, you could find the work of Durkheim, Emile Durkheim, talking about functionalism. So one of the greatest forefathers of structural functionalism or consensus perspective in sociology, you will have to talk about Emile Durkheim and Tarkov Parsons. I will come back to Parsons later on, and I will come back to Durkheim later on. So according to Durkheim, social institutions serve essential purpose in maintaining social order in society. Robert K. Merton is another very prominent scholar within the confine of functionalist perspective. While generally consensus perspective talks about social equilibrium, Merton believes that while you can have functionalism or functionality in society, you can have dysfunctionality at the same time in that society, because it's not all the time that you have functionality in society. But while Robert K. Merton introduces dysfunctionality in his own more recent narrative of structural functionalism, he tries to argue for dysfunctionality, that societies can still have dysfunctional roles to play, people can still be dysfunctional, institutions can be dysfunctional, but society has a way of reverting. Society is self-regulating and can move towards equilibrium in the long run. So, and a good element of dysfunctionality that Robert K. Merton was talking about is the role of subgroups. That you can have subgroups in society, subcultures, who may not agree with the general value, general normativities of society, like gangsters, like criminals, kidnappers, or all manners of deviant groups. But even though they have their subgroups, consensus theorists believe that the general society will have overall value. And in the long run, society has a way of coercing or managing or regulating this subgroup behavior to the extent they are able to still align with overall group values and consensus, to the extent that values does not break down, to the extent that this inimical subgroup dysfunctionality does not threaten social order, which is the primary goal of society. It's this social order that led to the formation of social institutions, technically speaking, to maintain the social order, to be sure there is no breakdown of norms and values in society. So consensus perspective emphasizes cohesion, social solidarity, and another point I want you to know is the organismic model. Organismic model, comparing society to an organism, which is a metaphorical allusion. It's a metaphor in sociology when we talk about organismic model, from the word organism. The society within the consensus perspective is compared metaphorically to an organism. An organism, every part of the organism must function effectively. Take a human being as an organism, a living being. Your eyes, your ears, your fingers, your toes, your orgasm, your genitalia, every part of your body, even your nails, must function effectively. If one is sick, definitely the body will not function very well. Imagine you having weak flu or you having infection in the eyes. It can break down your whole system if care is not taken. So consensus perspective also compare society to an organism, that every institution, every element of that society must function effectively for society to survive, for social order to be maintained. So the organismic model, don't forget. So harmonious relationship among you. I'm enjoying this lecture. I hope you're enjoying it too. So harmonious relationship is very important. The social institutions must perform regulatory roles, reward conformity, and sanction deviant behavior. So you have norms through which you can sanction deviant behavior, because for consensus perspective, deviance is not allowed. That's why you have sanctions within all the social institutions. If you don't perform well in the economic system, you are fired. If you don't perform well in the education system, you carry over, you have extra year, you are expelled or rusticated. If you don't perform well in politics, you lose your position and the rest of it. But if you perform well, you are rewarded with high grades in your exam. If you are sharp, you are rewarded with promotion in the economic system. If you perform well on social media, you have more followers, you have more subscribers, and that can take you further in life. So there are different ways society sanctions deviant behavior, and there are different ways society reinforces and reward conformities. And these are just approaches to which behaviors are regulated. So, and for this to happen, societies must continue to be integrated and agreed on norms that are beneficial to societies and that are functional. Yeah. Now, let me take you to the logic or the argument of Durkheim that I mentioned previously. For Durkheim believed that You can understand the functioning of society by breaking society in level of complexity. According to Durkheim, you have mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. Mechanical solidarity talks about relationship in small groups, like in rural areas, that there is value consensus within small groups, and their relationships tend to be more mechanical, tend to be more enduring, tend to be based on kinship system the more. But in urban centers, in large groups, faceless group, the relationship tend to be more organic, more transient, because the value consensus in such societies tend to be tend to be more ephemeral. So social institutions in these simple and small societies tend to be more fused, tend to be more united, tend to cohere more compared to large groups where you have organic solidarity that are more ephemeral, societies that are less, that cohere the less compared to mechanical. You can also find the work of Ferdinand Tonins. Ferdinand Tonins also talks about Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. Ferdinand Tonins, just like Durkheim, Tonins believe in Gemeinschaft. Societies like the one Durkheim called mechanical solidarity tend to be more mechanical, tend to have more value consensus, tend to fuse together the more, and the relationship tend to be more enduring and permanent. But Gesellschaft refer to societies like urban center, societies with less value consensus, and they are more ephemeral. Then you can now have the work of Thakur Parsons, who reigned in this proposition of social functionalism in the 1950s. For Thakur Parsons, the major contribution of Parsons is his work on acronym HAGIL. HAGIL, A-G-I-L. HAGIL, that's an acronym. For Parsons, these are what Parsons call functional prerequisites. That social institutions in those societies must perform these prerequisite functions for social order to be maintained. A means adaptation, G means goal attainment, I means integration, and L means latency, that is pattern maintenance. Patterns maintenance means how is a society able to maintain its value and transfer its value to the future so that there can be sustainable social order. Adaptation means society has to adapt to its environment based on survival needs and challenges. And goal attainment means every society must set goal for itself that they must perform. And so what these goals, that human relationships are structured in a way that the future and the goals are achieved. You also have integration. Societies must integrate, must function coherently and integrated as a whole, as a coherent whole. So this is agile. And these functions, this agile function, they are prerequisite. If societies do not perform it, society will break down and there will be social order. So there's going to be a lot of problems. So for Parsons, this agile function must be performed by all the social institutions in that society. All the education, family, religion, politics, economy, social media, the health system, the peer groups must perform this agile function for them to survive. Their functional necessities. They are necessities without which those societies will not function. Now, I want to mention two other issues before I round off this lecture. We have the people we call the far right, the new right. The new right movement in consensus theory or structural functionalism. We call them the new right. These are functionalists, structural functionalists who try to combine neoliberal economics with traditional analysis of society. And, the free market and pre-market movement, who also believe that there must be only minimal intervention of government in society. For example, when government plays too much role, they weaken the traditional role of society. We call them the new right in structural functionalism. So the new right argues that excessive government intervention in society through social institutions actually waters down the traditional role of the society institutions, and it creates problems. For example, they argue that when you give family support, child support to women or to families, it weakens the traditional role of members of society. For example, it can limit the importance of men or fathers, which can make women to be more predisposed to divorce or children do not depend on their parents but on government. They become wayward children. They become children without family control. So family then will not be able to perform its regulatory role because the roles of the family has been taken over by the government. Also, when you give people unemployment benefit, such people then have dependency mentality, entitlement mentality, and they refuse to work. So the economic system will suffer because able-bodied people then refuse to work but depend on the state. So these are the arguments that they are weakening the traditional roles of social institutions, and this is becoming inimical to social functioning. And this leads to poor socialization. It leads to lack of father figure, on unemployment, deliberate unemployment. So why the new right still believes in consensus, but they are concerned with the role of the state in taking over the traditional roles of social institutions, thereby reducing the importance of this social institution, thereby creating problem of disharmony or confusion in the social system. So they are arguing. So these new rights tend to be more practical than being theoretical. They are more of advocates, and they are intellectual advocates. So the new right is intellectual advocacy, canvassing for minimal role within the neoliberal economics and societies, and intervention within the free market system, that there must be a clear balance between this neoliberal economic and government system, neoliberal democracies like that, and the traditional institutions, so that we don't have confusion. And this is why many people have argued for the death of the family, because the traditional role of the family, for example, is being taken over in many societies, including socialization role. People now get their information and socialization on social media than from their parents. And people now depend more on external actors. So some people are saying the family is becoming irrelevant and they are announcing the death. Do you agree? So that's the role of, that's what the new right as we're talking about. So the last thing I want to talk about, what are the criticisms of this consensus perspective or structural functionalism? A major criticism is that structural functionalism or consensus perspective cannot explain change. They cannot explain social change because everything is about moving equilibrium. If there is disequilibrium, the society will regulate itself. How do you account for change or social development? As a development sociologist, I can say it's a major issue because from the conflict perspective, conflict will lead to revolution and society will move forward. But consensus also always talk about this, maintaining the status quo. Maintaining the status quo, there must be unity, there must be harmony, things must be in order. But you need some element of disorder to move forward, to have change, deconstruction, disruption of the social system to move forward. So critics believe that this social functionalism or consensus perspective does not have the capacity to explain social change, social progress, and social development. Others believe that, number two, this theory is too idealistic. It's too idealistic, that it's just theoretical and idealistic. But if you look at that, it's arguable. If you look at the roles of the new rights, I think you can see some practical or reality into it. Then another point, which I'll mention, number three, is the fact that people are not so robotic to the extent that social institutions will just regulate them and they will conform and everybody will be happy. There'll be moving equilibrium, there'll be conformity. Sometimes, how do you explain people who say, you know, go agree for anybody? They just behave anyhow, in this generation. You know, agree for anybody, and they just want to do their own. They don't want to listen. And there are many people like that, the Gen Zs and the rest of people, even people that are not Gen Z, there are older people who just want to do their thing. They just believe they want to think out of the box. Or like I always say, think without a box. And some people are not just robots, they just want to conform to norms and values. So people have their own interests, divergent interests, sometimes different from societies. And that's how you have some deviance and like that. So these are major elements, and criticisms about this. So don't forget there are many thinkers like I've mentioned. I've mentioned Ferdinand Tonin, I've mentioned Emily Durkheim, I've mentioned Tucker Parsons, I've mentioned Robert K. Merton. There's also Kingsley Davis, there's Will Bartmore, Anthony Giddens, a lot of people who have contributed significantly to this consensus perspective and social functionalism. But all of them talks about the same thing, basically speaking. But like I've shown you from case studies of Ferdinand Tonin, Robert K. Merton, Emily Durkheim, and type of persons. They just have some small elements to differentiate them. But consensus theory and structural functionalism is what it is. That's what it is. Like I've taught you in this video. I hope you've had a nice time. Kindly give it a thumb raise, subscribe to the channel by tapping the subscribe button on your screen, and tell others. Share widely. Until I see you in my next video, bye for now.